Hi there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to Being Human, Hidden Depths, the podcast by Collaboration Global. And my name is Jill Tiny, and I'm delighted to say we have one of our regular members at Collaboration Global, Louise Richardson, join us today. Lovely to have you today, Louise.
Thank you for inviting me, Jill. It's a delight to be here.
Well, you and I are very good at talking, aren't we?
A little bit. So we've been told.
But what I want to do is delve deeper into what you do and why you do it. And kind of, I see you personally as an emphatic, go-getting, no-nonsense kind of woman. And other people might see you as stroppy, high-handed. There's two ways of looking at the same coin, isn't there? And it's interesting how, as women in business, and women who are passionate about what we do, we can be labelled stroppy or bossy or all those kind of names. I was once refused to go. You're not allowed to go on the assertiveness training course because you're too stroppy as it is.
Yes.
Excuse me? Everyone else in the office can go, but I can't go.
Yeah.
Funny that. At the age of 21, you go, okay then. Even though I was stroppy, I went, okay then. So it'll be interesting to see how you tackle some of the life shifts that we've seen over the past probably 5 years, or it has been going on longer, but over the last 5 years, and how mental health has been affected. So before I go on and prattle on, for those of you that don't know and haven't heard your other podcast, can you tell us briefly, you're CEO of Absafe, Aberdeen, up in Aberdeen. Tell us what you do and why you do it.
So we deliver education on multiple, I suppose, with multiple spotlights. So we traditionally worked with young people, P7, which is around 10, 11, 12, and we taught them things so they didn't die. That's kind of simply what we did. And the reason we did that was because we knew it worked. We would bump into people that had been, to Absafe when they were younger, and they go, I remember the train, or I remember learning about water safety. And when the young people come here, we ask them, like, why here? Why can't we do this at school? And they say, because it's different, it's better. Our educators kind of get to give real life experiences to help them make different decisions. Because what we want young people to do is make better decisions for them, take accountability, that behaviour has an impact, whatever that behaviour is. Even if we cover it online, we talk about their legal responsibilities, particularly with protected characteristics. Or we say, you could make that decision and that will happen, but you could make that decision and that won't happen. So it's about them really looking at choices, because even though we know about brain development in young people, we know that they're going to take more risks. We're trying to get them to maybe kind of minimize those risks by making different decisions. We also have done a mindfulness project in the schools. We also deliver a Denny Get Scammed. I can't say that very well because I'm not Scottish, where we teach anybody over the age of 16 around safety online, whether that's password protection and we generally story tell. We're just started, launched 2 pre-employability courses yesterday. So we've got 2 cohorts, and that really came about because we got some money from something called AbsWorks, which came via Aberdeen Council, but I think it's centrally funded. And what we saw was people, the system's not great. And this isn't a blame to anybody. So, a coach might spend 3 minutes on the phone with the person that they're coaching twice, every 2 weeks, and get them to look at a list of the jobs they've applied for and because apparently you have to demonstrate that you're looking for work as a full-time occupation. And what came across then is that we had a lot of people that were feeling a bit broken, their confidence was really low, their self-esteem was really low. So, and the more they apply for jobs and didn't get them, the more that was impacting on their self-esteem. So we reapplied for the fund, and now we're doing a stepping forward course, which means we're really covering kind of key elements, which is confidence, resilience, and kind of making plans that are achievable for them. So it is a joy to work with people and just see them grow, just having a conversation with them, just talking to them like human beings.
Yes.
We have no outcome, they just have to turn up, there's no exam, because I don't know if you know that if you are under the WP, and you are claiming benefit, and I don't know the names of benefits anymore, then they will sanction you, and they call it a sanction. And I said to somebody the other day, is it 1910? So if you, for instance, have booked on my course and you don't go, you will get sanctioned, and they will take money from you.
Oh, wow.
And they call it sanctioning. It's like a thing. Now, I know that's their language they use, but I just think about how much that must impact on people to know that they're being sanctioned like they're naughty.
Yeah.
So our course really covers those key elements. So we had 2 cohorts yesterday. The first cohort, we didn't even get past slide 4. And the second cohort, we didn't get past like slide 7, So
Wow.
it's all about interactive collaboration. It's all about, I learn from them, they learn from me. It's giving them hints, tips, and explanations why they're behaving a certain way. When you know that you behave in a certain way because of organic reasons, because I talk about caves a lot, and
Yeah.
when we're born, and the brain, I explained the other day, isn't created equal. You've got older parts and newer parts. Then actually a lot of things that we do is a choice. And I think once we tell people that, you can then say, well, if I choose to do that, like we do with the kids, then this will happen. But if I choose to do that, then something else will happen. So fundamentally, what we do isn't different. We just do it in different guises. We've just started a community choir. Now, I didn't want to start a community choir because I have too much to do. But somebody came up to me and went, oh, there's really lonely older people in the community. They want a choir. And I went, fine.
Ah.
So we applied for somebody, got a little bit of money. Now we've got a community choir. And
Excellent.
we've just got somebody to run a women's choir. So that is really a safe space for women to come.
Wonderful.
Doesn't matter what your experience is. It's literally just 2 hours that women can come, and it'll be a safe space run for women by women. And those things are really important to develop resilience and confidence in the community.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that we'll get people from the police that come, and kind of rape crisis and all those, just come and integrate in the choir a little bit.
This is what it's about, isn't it? This is the
Yeah.
thing, is community. So many times in so many places, community has been lost. So if you are struggling and you need to go to report it to a policeman, it's that something's happened to you, and you might not know any policeman, but if one or two of them have been in the community and you see a familiar face, then you feel like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. It's not so difficult.
Yeah, and we have police officers that are community based, so they're and I know a couple of them. Like, one of them was on our board of directors, and she's
Brilliant.
pretty normal, right? So she's pretty approachable, pretty normal, but she's a police officer. At the end of the day, she's a police officer, and I think it's good that we have people that are police officers, and then they have a certain set of rules, and that's good, because that's important.
Yeah.
But but I think if we can break down some of those barriers, I think that would be great.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
We
they get such
are,
bad press, don't they?
yeah, and there are people who are presenting in organizations that that are really positive, and there's people in the same organizations that maybe are presenting a bit negative, and that happens across the board. And I was a nurse for a long time, similar thing. I was reading something this morning that somebody said, when they were told that I think their daughter had died, they were kind of in that moment of grief, and they were told to keep it down, there were sick people. Now, you can pick that apart as much as you want,
Gosh.
but nothing you can say at that point would make it feel better. But there's different ways of handling it. But then you're relying on that person who's delivering that information not to have the succession of a bad morning.
Yes.
I remember I worked on a Christmas Day once. I had 3 deaths,
Oof.
and and then by your third one, you're kind of like, I'm a little bit tired of
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
horrible news.
Yeah.
So I think it's sometimes, we have spoken in the past, and I delivered a resilience presentation on Thursday to business people
Mm-hmm.
via Prosper, which is like a local, it's a national organisation in Scotland, and they work with like SMEs, usually represent SMEs. And I was saying that we need, you can go into certain organizations, they'll have a list of what do they call them? Core values.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's always like communication, I don't know, appreciation, whatever it might be. There's always Asians, isn't there? And ours at Absafe is simple: be kind. That's it. That's it. We don't have any more. We don't have any less. And pride. That's what we have. And we have pride up it's like in separate letters, and it's over our door. And because we want people to have pride in themselves, but also, pride in what they do
Yeah.
in the community. So
Perfect.
that's what we have. And there's nothing added to that. There's nothing taken away. It's pride, and it's be kind. So when you think about that in terms of leadership, like I spoke about the other day, you can't be a good leader if you're not coming from a kind place. You can't. Because you just, if you're doing things out of anger, you will not get it right for you. And even if I was asked a question on Thursday, and they said, well, what about boundaries? I said, being kind doesn't mean you exist without boundaries. I think actually the opposite is true. Being kind is understanding your boundaries and understanding that if you have to deliver bad news, then you do it with your best intention, then you cause the least harm. If you're going to tell someone you're going to sack them, for instance, then that conversation has to happen whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And I think if you do it from a place of do the least harm, then it's going to come across a bit better. So I think Absafe were quite bespoke that way. And I think we're probably missed a lot because of that, because we're not the ones that will, I suppose, fit into kind of slots, because we know people don't fit into slots. So unless we're adaptable and responding to the needs of the community, then there's no point in being here.
Yeah, but then again, if you don't respond to the needs of the community, then you're not being kind and you're not having pride. So you're just not even fulfilling your basic values as an organization.
No.
One of the things you said earlier was about when you had a course the other day, and one time you just got to slide 4, and the other one you only got to slide 5. I love the thought that your organization is so adaptable that they see the people in the room. They're not just bringing people in cookie cutter style. This, you got to learn that, you read this PowerPoint, here's a handout, off you go. Next, you're looking at the people in the room and you are allowing them to ask and share what they need. And isn't it interesting that you spoke to a group of businessmen? Because what you're describing in that, where young people coming together in a room and only got to slide 4, that's because there were conversations that were useful to everybody. If you have a group of businessmen and you come into a room together and you share, that gets turned into a mastermind. That's a mastermind group where it's known in the SME world, in the entrepreneur world, that you get together with people who are like-minded and like-hearted, and you share your knowledge and your experience in order to help each other. And they will pay thousands for that mastermind group that they're allowed to go to meet up with other people that have the same problems as them, that have the same solutions that they don't have.
Yeah, and I think John, who kind of facilitates it, he works for Prosper. He's a really good guy. And, there were a group of business people in the room. And so one, I already know he's a coder, and I won't tell you his name because he's our coder. I'm not telling you who he is because he's quite busy. And, so you have people that work from anywhere from IT, kind of an SME, or it could be recruitment or whatever it is. And I think the beauty of that is that we forget that people are human in those roles. So you can go to a lot of talks and it might be about how you do your accounts, or, how you keep your staff safe, or health and safety, or anything. But actually what we don't is we miss a step before then. And I think there's a huge gap in that. There's a huge gap. I also have a pet hate, which I'm going to talk about, but there's a huge gap in being personable with people and actually saying, this is some knowledge that I've got, and I've accumulated my knowledge over 36 years. It's a long time. So I'm not speaking from a place of expertise. I'm speaking from a place of my experience that may be helpful for your experience.
Yeah.
And I think when we got the group who and they're unemployed, and the youngest was 17, and I don't know what the oldest was. It doesn't really matter, but he's older, and we don't we don't talk to them like they're a number, and we don't talk to them in words of like sanctioning and actually a lot of these people, we only found out later, were actually told they had to come on the course, which is the worst thing. And we were like, no,
Oh.
you don't actually have to go, but they had to because otherwise they get sanctioned, right? So it was really interesting. And one of the women in one of the courses was really challenging, and but not in a disrespectful way at all. But she was
Yeah.
like, I don't agree with you. And I went like,
Excellent.
let's look at that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you agree? And I think that's really helpful when people have a space where they can say, I don't agree with you, and you know, and that's not my perspective. And I went, that's absolutely okay. But let me tell you why it might be my perspective. And I think that dialogue doesn't happen enough. And I think we don't latterly. I think we probably all know that a lot of people are miserable at work.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of people that get that go, I really like a job, and I really like my job. And
Mm.
it is a job and it is a business, and I run it like a business. So it's you know, it comes with all the joys and pressures of that. And funding is a constant, like I was saying before we kind of started recording, a constant battle that I'm against, just to deliver these great kind of workshops for people to make an improvement in, you know, the local community and the community for Aberdeen. And my pet hate at the minute is, and I'll tell you a story. So I have a degree in psychology and I was a counsellor, right? So I'm a little bit qualified, right?
You've been
And
about a
a
bit.
little bit. And so I did an art, what's it called, an art therapy coach. Let me see if I can find the certificate.
Well,
So we decided we've got somebody to deliver a course for adults in the Shire. So we're going to do 2 weeks of music, 2 weeks of art, 2 weeks of acting, drama, right? It's all to do with building confidence and self-esteem. So I got a art life coach certification the other day. Now, I worry that people that don't have my background get that. That I worry about that because I think I worry about it, right? Because I know that that is a muddy water to step in when you're exploring people's raw emotions through a artistic space,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
I was laughing because I got a certificate and aren't I great and all that kind of stuff. And the list is great. And I think we need to be very careful that when we are working with people that we know the limitations of that. And a lot of the time it isn't the time to explore those things.
Mm.
And unless you are a hugely qualified person and being supervised and all that kind of stuff, you know, you can only kind of touch on the expression of freedom around that. And I think it's really important that people who do get courses, and it's great that people educate themselves. I'm all for that. I mean, I was in education kind of went leaving school and then went back into education when I was 25 and really stayed in it for about 15 years, plus
Wow.
worked 2 jobs and kids and stuff. Is that, you know,
Okay.
we need to be careful. So we need to be very
Mm.
careful when we're working with vulnerable people
Mm.
about what their expectations are, but also we need to give them space, but not enough space that they overexpose themselves, that
Yeah.
they instantly regret. And I think that's a very difficult balance to manage. And it takes experience. It's not an age thing, it takes experience. So whatever your experience may be, but even to manage a group of 5 people intensely for 2 hours is actually quite exhausting because you're holding these people,
Yeah.
managing the relationships within this little group and making sure that everybody remains safe. So it's a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned. But you know, I always worry that
But
we have
also,
courses and people then become vulnerable.
at the end of the day, you're a human being. So even if you've got a string of qualifications, you might be having a bad day and you're sitting there, and unless you give them that space to get to question you as well and not take what you are saying as verbatim, this is it, this is the way it should be, because we're all human beings and we all come at it from a different context, from a different space, a different experience. So it is really we have to value each other's experience and we have to value where they're coming from at the same time. I've got a
Yeah.
question.
One.
In view of the fact that one of our members at Collaboration Global is the founder of the World Mental Health Forum, and one or two other members are deeply into supporting people with poor mental health in their businesses. In your work, and obviously a lot of it is about where people are coming from and what their situation is and what their mental state is, what would you say generally is the biggest problem that is coming at you regularly that you see that people are struggling with?
People don't understand, even though we have more information at our fingertips than ever, right? We can Google everything, right? I mean, you and I both remember the days where there wasn't Google. I don't want to expose you there, Jill, but
We're 103, I know, yeah.
but is that we understand less. So I think the biggest thing that hits me all the time is that people really aren't taught the basics around their brain, their mind, and how their physicality affects that.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, sometimes I say stuff I think is really easy, right? I go, it's really like the brain thing. I know the brain is created at different times. When you think of evolution, it makes sense, right? But we don't teach people that.
No.
Because apparently that's not important. We don't teach people that a lot of the stuff we're trying to deal with is beyond our adaptability because it's coming too fast at us. And then somebody says to me the other day, like, why do we have so many kids with ADHD? So, well, let's look at it. You know, I was a kid, I was born in the early 70s, just in the 70s. And, you know, before then, you weren't sat in front of a telly on a Saturday morning. So I'm already overstimulated because, you know, the telly happened.
Yeah.
Then we all watched telly. And then we got more channels. And then we got this, we got video, we got, and so, you know, we're asking why this happens, like we have no responsibility for it. But actually, we've overstimulated our population to the point simple things are now being missed. And I think that's one of the things we need to take accountability and responsibility for.
Yeah.
Right? Why does it come as a shock that we've got kids that are overstimulated when our world is overstimulated? It's almost like they think they've just popped out with the womb.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
but you know,
I mean, when you add into all the other effects as well, the processed food and the dopamine hits and the cortisol being
all of that,
triggered,
and it makes sense. But I think the overstimulation of the brain that releases all those things, you know. And I think then people ask, why is it happening? And I look at them and I think, and it's almost like a shock. And I'm like, but you're overstimulated, we're overstimulated, and then you expect a 2-year-old not to be overstimulated.
Yeah.
And I just say, let's just join it a little bit. Let's join the dots a little bit. I'm not saying that's the be all and end all, but I do think it's contributing factor that we're overstimulated, therefore our kids are overstimulated, and then we ask why. I mean, sorry, I call it like the Facebook-itis, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I used to, this is 20 years ago, my goddaughter, I used to look after her for a little bit. And one day we were chatting and she says she does this on a Monday and then on a Tuesday and this on a Wednesday. So this is again, it's before social media and all the rest of it, but TV was there and processed foods and, you know, busy, busy, busy. And she had no days. She was like, lunchtime there was a club, after school club, evening there was drama or there was ballet or blah, 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 blah. Every single day. Saturdays there was something, Sundays there was something. I said, when do you get time to go blah? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, when do you get bored? And she said, well, like, what's bored?
Yes.
I said, okay, once every half term, you come around to my house and we're having a blur day. And for the best part, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, she would come round and we'd just like hang out, do nothing, maybe. If she fancied making cakes, maybe we'd make some cakes. If she fancied me reading a story for an hour, I'd read a story for an hour. Whatever she needed at that time, she could do. And now I see my granddaughter, 2, every day. Buzz, 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 buzz. I said, you come to Nanny G's? Do you want to go out? She's like, no. I said, okay, we won't go out.
There's no breathtaking. But I think when we look at how we explain that, when we link that to business and leadership and management, and I think, you know, we get asked the question all the time about what's the difference between leadership and management. And I think it's quite clear a good leader, a great leader should do things from a place of empathy and kindness.
Yes.
100%. If you don't, you end up like Donald Trump, and I'm not going to get into that today.
Don't start. We'll do that another day.
But you know what I mean? You get to the point where he's the opposite end of that. He's not really a leader. He's not.
He's a businessman and he's manipulating. Anyway, won't talk.
Yeah, won't go into that. We don't have time. And I'm not as polite as you, Jill.
Okay.
But I think, you know, it's a stark reality is that we don't really celebrate people who come from a place of kindness because people still view kindness as weakness. And I think I've said before, you know, kindness is a superpower. And if we're kind, we get the benefit more than the person we're being kind to. And I think if we tell people that, you know, if people aren't mean, then you'll feel better. Part of the course that we're doing at the moment is around getting people to feel joyous.
Oh.
And it's a really interesting word because when I use it, people go, and I'm like, let's re-own it. Let's re-explore what joy means. What does joy actually mean? And interestingly, I used to work with somebody, I tell you, we used to work with somebody called Joy for about 10 years, actually. But anyway,
Yeah.
I really love joy. But when you say to people, let's explore what joy is and what that does to your brain and what does that to, the kind of the chemical composition of your brain, it's kind of like a gift and it's really free.
Oh my
I
goodness.
think if we say that to people, this is free. You
Yeah.
can do this, and it's practice. It's like if you're going to go to the gym, or if you're going to learn a language, or if you're going to learn to paint, or any of those things. It takes practice, but the more that you can invite joy in your life, and over really tiny things, like really
Oh,
small things.
absolutely. I knew somebody once who I was talking to him about when I was at school, and I said, the one thing about school, even if I didn't like the lessons, I knew that every single day I'm going to laugh till my ribs hurt, and I would be saying, stop it, I can't take it anymore. And he looked at me like I was mad. He said, the only time I've laughed uncontrollably, he said, was when I was taking drugs. I was like, what? He had no experience of that joy, that uncontrolled laughter over something. They go, what are we laughing about? I don't know. You started it. Well, I can't remember what that was about. To this day, I've got a friend I went to uni with in my 40s, and we've got a thing, and we don't know why. If we go through a revolving door, we fall out the other end and we're in fits of laughter. And the friend of ours who's watching this is going, I don't know what it is about you two girls. He said, I just don't get it. I mean, we don't either, but it's hilarious. It's just that thing, that pure joy, just for silliness sake, just being silly and daft and not worrying about what people think of you and not worrying about who's looking at you, or not worrying if you've got to take a photo of it or take a video of it, or whether you were looking great or had your makeup on perfect, just being silly and enjoying yourself. And
And I
that's what
think,
we're missing.
and I think it's something that we can talk about a little bit more, but not in a way. You go to seminars and stuff, but I think it has to be delivered in a way that people understand and people relate to and resonate with. And it's not, and again, I don't speak from a place of expertise. I have expertise in that area, but I'm not the expert. All I'm doing is sharing things that are actually common knowledge. They're like what we call open source. You can go and look this up.
Yeah.
And it's how you connect the dots, I guess, and it is about, so can I share this? So we had a referral for this course, and it was an inappropriate referral, and I spoke to this person, I don't know how old they are, and he really just wanted a certificate, and he is under guardianship. So I didn't know all that at the time. So I said to his support worker, look, they were having a meeting. I said, look, when you've had the meeting, get back to me. We'll do a course for an hour,
Yeah.
and we'll give them a certificate.
Yeah.
And we'll do that free of charge.
Oh, nice.
And they said, oh, I said, because we can put something together for an hour. We've got lots of resources, and it'll be about 50 minutes. We'll have a little break and we'll give him a certificate. That'll make him feel happy as Larry, and give him, and it's all about boosting self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I think there's little bits like that we are tight for time, right? Ken and I do this on not even full-time hours, and we run a charity that really needs about 6 people. So it's not but I just think sometimes you have to spend a time in the moment and think, right, who's going to benefit from this? And you've got to invest that time in this person, because they were promised something they weren't really suitable for.
Oh,
So that wasn't their fault,
no.
right? That wasn't their fault. So how can we make it right for them? Like,
But there
how
will
can
be
we
a
make it
little
better
part
for
of
them?
them that will feel like they've been overlooked again, they've been ignored again, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time again, and whatever it is,
All
they
of
will
that.
make meaning
So
into that.
yeah, for sure. So it's about doing those little things, and if that's the only thing that you do, but I know that I'll get a lot of joy out of that. So it's not even altruistic,
No.
because we've worked with a client group similar to that, and we had a lovely little day. To be honest, we had like one of the best days we've ever had. So we know it's not based on altruism. We know that we'll get benefit from that. We'll know that the smile on that person's face will feed us for days. So there's no way it's coming from a place of I'm a martyr here. Absolutely
I
not.
know, because
It's something.
exactly what you said earlier, being kind is better almost for the
Yes, I
person giving
mean,
it than the person receiving it.
the joy in somebody's face because you've just chatted stuff for an hour,
Yeah.
which I can pull out my pocket anyway.
Yeah.
is amazing. And so I don't want people to sit and think, oh, I'm doing that. It's not that actually. It's because it's a good thing to do, but I'm going to definitely get benefit from that.
And for
100%.
somebody who has probably struggled in life and felt rejected and felt like they're not good enough, they've now got a certificate that
Yeah.
says they've achieved something.
Yeah, he
And
did say, if I don't con, can I have a certificate? And I went, no. I was like, no, you can't.
you're
And he's
going to
like, oh,
suffer.
you will put up with me for an hour.
You're going to
Anyway,
give me joy, or
you're going to give
else.
me joy or nothing happens. And I think it's back to I think it's back to that. Let's go back to our basic human self. Our
Mm,
basic, I mean, I have a theory. I have theories on lots of things. One of them is around when we lived in caves. I love talking about lived in caves. Is that, we used to be matriarchal, right? So we
yeah,
used to have women that used to kind of do everything.
yeah.
And so I was talking to somebody today, I said, because you kind of only need one man, but probably need 6 women because we have one woman, right? That kind of stuff. But I think once we got away from that, we got away from that kind of maternalistic community. I'm not saying it's everybody, but I think it's a shame that we're missing that. We're missing a beat on that as
Mm,
well, to go back to that. Let's just take a breath and see what's going on. Let's see if we can avoid this conflict. Let's see how we can sit here without an ego and just make sure that people don't die. I think is something that kind of keeps me awake at night, because I think it's something that can be easily solved because it's not a hard problem.
mm,
It's made difficult, but
yes.
actually it's not a difficult problem to solve. You just have to stop and do something different.
Yeah.
So instead of going to war, don't go to war. And when we talk about choices, it is all a choice. We all have choices to make. And I think that's a shame. And I think it does keep me up at night, because I think we're missing a beat. We could probably, if the world, and I say to people, can you imagine people being kind to you all the time? Or can you imagine in school that everybody is having a lovely time and nobody gets bullied? And the kids can't even imagine that.
Oh,
It's so far beyond their ability to see.
gosh.
They struggle to imagine that. And if they can't imagine it, then it will never happen. And I think that's the crime. It's criminal for me. And it's the crime that people are missing. And schools are like war zones at the minute. You know, we,
Mm,
there is violence in quite a lot of our schools, and not through the students to teachers, students to students. It's, and I think it's when, as Absafe, because we work in schools, we try and do a little bit about that, but we're not funded enough to go in there and really unpick that and really change the culture, because that's something we could do,
mm,
and not for that much money, but we could, because we did it. We changed the school into a mindfulness school. So massive impact, changed the whole culture of the school, to the point that we're doing mindfulness sessions on kayaks, because it was that important to the kids to do even when they were on their like transition break.
wow.
And if we our dream, and people, I dream a lot about stuff, because I think it's the only way you can kind of get past bumps in the road, is if we could do that to all the feeder schools to one high school, or we call them academies, some are called academies in Scotland. What a difference that would make, that people then are prepared, self-regulated, understand giving and taking feedback, and respect and decision making and accountability.
And if they go into that school knowing that everybody else is following those examples, and over the door is be kind and pride, then you're not on watching for the next person that's going to bully you, or looking out, having to protect yourself. So you can be more open, more natural, more authentic, and
Yeah,
then you can be more creative, stretch your abilities, because you're not worried about somebody ridiculing you or saying you're not good enough.
all of that. And I think that's what I mean. It's not complex. It's not hard. It doesn't feel hard to me. I'm not saying it's not easy to do. That's not what I'm saying. But the concept of it is quite simplistic. We need to go back to those community feels. We need to put back in, how people value themselves, how people can build their own confidence, and how people really build their own self-esteem. Because I was asked a question like, what's the difference between confidence and self-esteem? I think confidence you can fake till you make it, right? You can pretend to be confident. People tell me all the time they're confident, and I think, I'm not sure. But self-esteem is an inward, inner, you, core. That's self-esteem for me. And
Yeah.
self-esteem is really important to develop confidence, and confidence is important to develop self-esteem, but less so, because I think it's a very externalized presentation, where
Mm.
self-esteem is all about your core value, your rock, your steady, your foundation. And I think it's really important that people understand that difference, because I think people think, I am a confident person, but I don't have to tell people I'm confident
Mm.
because they see it. That doesn't mean I'm confident all the time,
No.
but I'm confident in my abilities, but I'm also confident in my core value system, that even if I'm not feeling confident, I will try and do the best by somebody
Mm.
most of the time. So that's what gives you the confidence. People misread the word confidence and misunderstand confidence all the time.
I think this is what you're just saying there was very important, in that if you're looking to do stuff and be kind for other people, you put yourself second, and so there isn't the need to have confidence because you're doing it for somebody else, so the confidence will come, or the self-esteem is in there because you've got your purpose and your fire in your belly to help that other person. You'll climb over hot coals if needs be, so that will give you the confidence to do what you have to do, because this person's standing in front of you and they need you, and you can help and support them. So everything else about, oh, am I good enough, or have I got the right clothes on, or I was 2 minutes late, I wonder if that's going to, all of that doubt that we have, and we can all go down that road. I'm sure 99% of people will go down that road of self-doubt for whatever reason, imposter syndrome and all the rest of it. But when you're doing it for somebody else, I say this to a lot of my clients, it's like, how dare you not tell people what you do and help people because you're a bit shy, or you don't want to go on a video, or you're too scared to start that workshop, or whatever it is that's going on, because you can help people. So why are you keeping that to yourself? And it's the same
Yeah.
for you. As soon as you can help somebody, the relevance of confidence is forgotten. It's just, this is what I have to do, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we call it the three Fs, the Fs situation, which is the fight, flight, and fear. And,
Yeah.
and it's all our anger, fear, all those emotions are the same. It comes from one umbrella, really. And when you understand that, you understand then how you can manage it. If we can give people the tools to manage that, so they're not coming from a place of fear, which is actually just poor man's anger or whatever, it organically it's the same. And then I say to people all the time, so you feel fear, where do you feel it? Where anxiety, okay, you feel excitement, where do you feel it? And it's the same.
Mm.
When you think about that, you feel it, you feel physically the same. You just give it a different, give or take. I mean, it's quite
Yeah.
a simplistic view of neuroscience, but give or take, our body responds the same. And that's why little wins are so important and little joys are so important, because our brain tolerates that better, right? So I think if we can tell people that and get them to explore that, and get them to really, and when you say that to people, people go, oh, and I'm like, I know. And it gives them a sense of, okay, if I can work with excitement, I can work with fear. Unless you need to be fearful, like I said, unless you're being chased down by a bear,
Yeah.
then social anxiety is a really interesting concept, because your brain scans for fear all the time, every minute of every day, even when you're asleep. It's not unusual for your brain to keep on scanning. So unless you have something to be fearful, and I mean like a proper attack, then you can kind of start thinking about and imagine the fact that you're going to be okay. And I think that leads people to feel better. People who feel better make better decisions. People who feel better are happier. So there's
Mm.
all of that that's into kind of linked and entwined in is us as human beings. But actually, we're very basic people. Organically, we're basic in
Mm.
terms of, our body responds to things that hasn't really changed that much in the last how many years? Thousands of years,
Yeah.
maybe. I'm not very good at history, so don't come at me with that. But
But
it's been a long time.
the thing that has changed is the speed of change. There's so many things happening so quickly. Going back to the ADHD thing we were talking about earlier, that's one of the massive things that have changed, is that we're all sitting on our bums now. We're not walking to the bus stop or jumping on the train. We're working from home, or we're not turning on the radio or going to the television. We're just telling Alexa to do it for us. It's all these things that we're now living such sedentary lives. So all of that energy is now moving itself into our brain to start the worrying of, like, what if and what. It's shifted the physiology of how we are. So if that's why I know everybody's going running now, because everyone says that's where they find their peace, because they're getting rid of all those kind of toxins that are in their body, because they're
Yeah,
actually
it's
moving.
all to do with adrenaline and noradrenaline cortisol. But I have to confess, I'm not going to go running. I just want to say,
No, I'm
I'm
not
not
running.
running. I don't want to run. I'm not going to run. when I look at people running, I've never seen them smile. So I've seen people smile when they eat ice cream. I'm just putting that out on this podcast right here and now. But what I did do, there's certain things that you can do. So, I took art and I paint, and
Yeah.
that's kind of my piece because it's peaceful.
Yeah.
But they're still struggling that, trust me. But it's a peaceful. So I think whatever if it's running, great. If it's lying down on your back, great. If it's going to the gym and lifting some weights, great. If it's going for a walk, if it's, swimming, if it's just spending 20 minutes outside thinking about nature, looking at the sky, great. I mean, it depends. I think it's so individualized that we have to choose what is
Absolutely.
best for us
Yeah.
that gives us some peace. And I think what we miss 100% is peace.
Mm.
And because we don't daydream anymore. Like, when have you ever heard of kids daydreaming?
Oh gosh. I
Now,
used to love it.
we
I
used to daydream all the
daydream through
time.
all,
Look out the window,
yeah, I was just gonna say
not
I
listen to the
daydream through all my
teacher.
math lessons, absolutely.
And I think that's what the kids don't do anymore.
No. Oh
They
well.
don't daydream. They just don't sit there, like you say, and just look out of the window.
That because they're on their phones or
On their phones, or there's something they're anxious about because they don't know if they're going to get, they're going to get a response to or not a response to, or they're, like you say, they're booked up, so they've got like ballet and football and rugby. And I am going to say I was guilty of this. My kids probably could barely take a breath. Except four of them. So if one of them wasn't going, we all went, right? So
yeah.
if one of them played football, we all went to football. So it was kind of that situation because Stu worked away, so a lot of it we were single parents in essence, like getting kids to
Mm.
things. So
And
one of them played rugby, we all went to rugby.
yeah.
So, but yeah, kids don't daydream.
No.
I've not heard of anybody use the word daydream anymore because it's something that kids don't do. And I think it's a great loss because our brain is our biggest organ and we rest it the least.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. I've literally just had the flu, as many people will know, because I keep going on about it. And I was I was floored. But the blessing, and there's always a blessing, is that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't look at the screen. I couldn't watch TV. So for a good week, I was just thinking. And it was bliss in order to kind of clarify my thoughts and think about different things and daydream and let my mind wander all on its own. And then it would come back again. It was just a gift. It was an absolute gift to be able to do that. And I think you're right. I love that Winnie the Pooh poem about two raindrops going down the window pane and which one's going to win. And I'm sure children would not have even had a blink of a moment to watch two raindrops on a window pane. We used to get bored a lot when we were kids, didn't we? And it was a good
Yeah,
thing. It made you imaginative and creative to
yeah.
create something to
And
amuse
I
yourself.
and I think thing is we celebrated that, but we're the ones that have passed it on the least. Interestingly, if you think about it.
Yes. Ouch.
And why? Sorry, you've never met Stu, my husband, have you? Paul, I talk about him all the time.
I know.
I'll talk about him all the time. Sometimes it's nice. And he came into the bedroom one day and he says, "What are you doing?" And I just went, "I'm thinking." And he went, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, you've interrupted my thinking."
Ouch.
And he kind of just literally looked at me as if I needed mental health
Just say,
assistance.
be gone.
I literally like, we need to get someone to, kind of be an exorcist in here, an exorcism.
Ah,
Because I think it's important that and how do we do that is by we manage it and we mirror it. So we talk about, we need to sit still and we need to say, right, I'm just thinking, what about? And I went, not sure. I'm just letting my brain think. And that's why people will say often, oh, I have my best ideas in the shower, or when you stood in a queue to go, because you're
yeah,
literally not doing anything
yeah,
else. So it's not because
yeah,
of the shower. It might be. I'm not gonna, you do you. But my point is it's because we're usually the least distracted.
yeah.
You might have to raise in one.
I tell you what was interesting. Last week, my granddaughter, age 2, we're walking through this park, beautiful park, and I'm chatting about, oh, look at the leaves and look at all the daffodils, aren't they lovely? And she went, Nannish. I was like, okay. But what she was saying, she said, listen. And we stood there and we were listening to the birds. She was in heaven. She was in absolute heaven. I went, okay, Nanny, be quiet. I'll be quiet.
But interestingly, you've been taught a lesson by a 2-year-old that understands the importance of listening to nature, right? So at
Exactly.
2, she has a
Lovely.
greater understanding than most people I come into contact with. At 2, she generally understands that people should just shut up.
Yes.
And I do say this to Stu sometimes, because when he goes for a walk, when I go for a walk with the dogs, like we have 3 dogs, I never listen to anything. I don't listen to music anymore. I don't listen to podcast. I don't listen. I literally try. And it's interesting. I notice that if I'm really busy, I don't hear the birds. But there's like a little bit of Aberdeen. Everything's Aberdeen is great. It's got beautiful green areas, and we've got a beautiful beach, right?
Lovely.
And sometimes the birds are deafening. And sometimes I've gone, I haven't heard that because I've been too distracted. So it's literally like
Yeah.
your granddaughter says, you have to just go, shh.
Yeah.
And once you start listening to one bird, it's like a cacophony. I don't even know if that's the word for birds.
Yeah.
And literally, it was so loud. I was thinking, I haven't heard that for like 5 minutes of my walk
Wow.
because I was too distracted. And
God.
I think, you've been handed it from her to you. You've been handed a gift to shut up and listen. And
Yeah.
I think there's something, and I tell adults that all the time, and I tell kids that all the time. When I was giving the talk to the business community on Thursday, I don't know if I've got one here actually. We were talking about slinkies. I don't know if I did that in the presentation the other day.
Yes.
Talking about slinkies. So I bought them, not the I'm gonna show you, it's on the floor. So I bought them slinkies, right?
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, oh.
I love a slip.
So I said, and I bought them out of my money, right? Not because it's right and good, and I wouldn't spend the charity money, but I actually want to give them a gift from me to them, and it was interesting because there was a table, and they hadn't picked up their slinkies. Someone else sat by there, and they hadn't picked up their slinkies, and he was quite. So we went up and he went, "You haven't picked up your slinkies," and at the same time, this group of 5 people picked up these slinkies and smiled,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I went,
yeah. Nailed it.
well, it's not that. I just want what a joyous thing for them to smile, like before their working day. They've
Yes.
literally picked up this thing that not like the slinkies we used to get back in the day, but and it just gave them a sense. They all smiled, and I think if you
Yeah.
can do that for somebody, then why would you choose not to? And I think that is a choice, and we need to be coming full circle. We need to be very aware that we choose our behavior, even if we're feeling overwhelmed or angry or upset or happy or excited. It's still a choice, and if you can make someone just smile for a day, even for a second. And it's somebody was telling me the story that Ian the coder, I won't tell his name because I told you because he's really good. I'm not going to tell you, but he said, he in the morning he says hello to people, and then the next time he meets them, like they look at me a bit weird, and then they'll go hello, and
Yeah.
it's kind of that ripple effect.
Yeah.
So I think the small things we do gives us a sense of joy, and that joy helps our brain, the chemicals change in our brain to make them kind of release more of the good stuff. So I suppose Absafe exists to do that. And it's a shame because that is our agenda, and that's our only agenda actually, is kind of to make people's lives better. That's it.
But that's like the fulcrum though for all the results that you get from people that never knew about how to be safe online, never understood how they might be scammed and can now be safe, never understood water safety, never understood all the gazillion things that you teach them. And all you're doing is coming from this place of joy, kindness, and pride. And that is like if you put that in a little yeah, this is what I want to do for people, everyone's like, oh really? But when you then take it down to this is making them safe and giving them choices, it's giving them empowered choices. And I think one of the biggest things is to give them choice of where they put their attention. And that then gives them space for their heads to relax and breathe, but also to not go to a space where they could get upset and churned up with all the emotion that's the negative stuff, that maybe they're being bullied or whatever. And it's being able to choose where your attention goes. And that's again the mental issues that our young people, and obviously grown-ups, adults as well, but they're struggling with, is because they're being bombarded all the time. And if it's attacking them and people in judgment of them, which they feel they can do because they can be anonymous online, it's like you cannot look at your phone. So I think I'm going to start up a rebel movement. There's AI coming up and we don't know if it's truth or lies or scams or whatever. Everyone goes, oh, it's brilliant. It's going to help and revolutionize and la, la, la. Well, yeah, you can take the best bits, but some bits of the internet are not the best bits. So choose where your attention goes and make sure your brain has space to be attentive to you and to find out what you need.
You just need to sit and listen.
Yeah.
That's what you go and take a step outside.
Yeah.
and just sit and listen. Whether you live in a rural area, in the middle of a city, try and find that space where you can listen. I know it sounds really strange, but listen to a tree rustle. I
Mm.
mean, I told you about the research about the plant, didn't I? Maybe we can end on this. So
Remind me. Yeah.
they did a piece of research in a care home, and so they say they had 50 residents. I don't know the exact details. So 50 residents, 25 they gave plants to all 50 residents, right? And 25 of them had to water their own plants, and
Yeah.
25 of them got them watered by the care staff. What they noticed is in the cohort that they watered themselves, they needed less pain medication, they felt more connected, they felt happier.
Nice.
And all they were doing was watering their plant.
That's
So my advice to anybody listening to this, and I kind of got a bit crazy with plants and, like lockdown, like a big weirdo. So my husband tries to sneak him out the front and I sneak him in the back, that kind of
yeah.
and is that, if it doesn't have to be big, and this is what I keep on coming back to, Jill, it doesn't have to be altruistic, it doesn't have to be massive. You can get a cacti for literally no money and just watch it in the morning. So if you can't access outside because you live on a main road, then get a small plant and look at that plant. It has the same effect. And even if you imagine being outside, your brain does the same things if you're actually outside. So even if you can't go outside for whatever reason, like we had somebody on the course yesterday who was historically agoraphobic.
Oh.
If you imagine being outside, your brain does similar things.
Mm.
So if you are not feeling happy, if you can imagine feeling happy, it releases similar chemicals. If you can't go outside, imagine going outside. If you want to be a 100-meter runner, then imagine being a 100-meter runner, right? Imagine the race, imagine running the race. Your brain will release certain chemicals. You don't actually have to physically do the fact.
Mm.
And that's good to know because people aren't always in circumstances where they're able to get to where they need to be to feel peace. They may be in hospital or, in, high-rise building or whatever it may be. And here's my plea. If you are making buildings, build balconies. I think everybody should have an outdoor area.
Yeah.
Everybody. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with balconies. If somebody wants me to build me a house with a balcony, I'm there. That'd be great. That'd be amazing. But that's all I want to say to people is that, we try and get people to imagine that their lives can be different. And that's a starting point for them, maybe making choices that will be different for them.
Absolutely. Going back to joy, one of the ways you spread joy, I have to just share this with people, is you have a particular dinosaur that you look after.
Do you mean Dax?
The wonderful, was it Dax? I don't know what the name was.
Do you mean the one we've got in the what we show the kids?
The one that made you and Ken just fall about laughing.
Yeah, so we have I'm sure yeah, we have what happened was I decided that the staff needed cheering up. So I ordered an inflatable dinosaur suit
Like,
from Schmamazon.
like you do.
And then I came into work in it.
Most people just bring in donuts, but you had
I came in as an inflatable dinosaur.
Excellent.
And then we decided to make it our mascot. So we have a video in our old when we were in the port cabins, and it was Ken dressed up as Dax being naughty, so like he was messing the bed up, and so we have Dax the dinosaur, and he's kind of our mascot. And every now and again, we will get dressed up in it.
Yeah, I
And
love
then
it.
just flop around. So yeah, that's kind of the history of Dax the dinosaur. Was me going, I think the staff need cheering up. I'm just going to order a inflatable dinosaur suit. So that's the history of that actually.
You'll,
And I
you'll
remember
have,
once I was working somewhere and I decided that I was going to I'd ordered a silk Indian wedding dress,
oh,
but it was massive, right? It was like it was a prop. It wasn't like a sari. It was a wedding dress, and I just sat in it all day in a care home. Now, I didn't know that day that the care inspector were going to turn up. I went, hello, I'm Queen Louise, and I pretend to be a queen for the day. So I think sometimes it's about bringing that sense of joy and fun. And we've talked about before about not having kind of a box of tricks, but a toy box, and really kind of really tapping into that. And I
yeah.
know I know it's not easy for everybody, but I do remember that. I remember the GP coming that day and she just went, "What are you doing?" I went, "I think you're fine today. I'm going to be a queen." So yeah, I will literally walk around with a crown on my head and stuff.
It's getting tune into your inner child, I think, is
Yeah,
absolutely,
and
yeah.
I think the Dax thing's quite funny, and the kids love it actually. I didn't think they
Yeah,
were going to like buy into it, but they proper love Dax the dinosaur. So, and
I love it.
I think it's those moments where you try and be vulnerable, so other people then you allow other people to be vulnerable. If you're being joyful and it's not childlike, it's just joyfulness. I mean,
Mm.
you were called out by your 2-year-old granddaughter, right? Just
Right.
listen. So
Yeah.
it's not to do with being childlike at all. I don't think it is. I think it's just find your inner joy, whatever that looks like. And if you can get a 2-year-old that understands that, comprehensively, we don't even have to tell her. She sees it, she gets it, she understands it. So if a 2-year-old can understand it, surely people listening to this can
Yes.
go, okay, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm
Yeah.
gonna because a 2-year-old told Jill to, we're gonna give it a
Yeah.
go.
Exactly.
And because we're never silent, but what we listen to that's important. So yeah, the sound of the wind or going outside or just imagining that will actually help us feel better. But yeah, you got called out by your 2-year-old granddaughter. I love it.
Oh, she's that's not the first time. She's been here before, I think. She knows what she's doing, and she's a wise old woman already at the age of 2. Um, Maybe you could send over that dinosaur clip and I'll pop that on the end of this video podcast.
Yeah,
Sadly, if you're
I'll see.
listening on audio, you won't be able to see that, but pop over to our YouTube channel at Collaboration
Yeah, I'll see
Global.
if I can find it. I don't know where the video is, but I'll see if I can find it. It's on the main thing, so I might just
Cool.
do a bit of digging because Ken's not here. So, but I'll put it on the list. We'll
It
get it
made
sorted
me it
somehow.
made me giggle, and you were giggling. The pair of you were in hysterics at the time, and it just like, how can you not watch that and laugh? It's like that. One of my favorite clips is the very famous lady who bought herself a Chewbacca mask, and then she tries it on and she just laughs. How can you not laugh with her? It was hilarious, and I was tears running down my face. I thought, well, that's a good minute well spent. I'm going to get on with my work now.
I think Ken and I laugh a lot.
Good relationship. Yeah.
And we laugh a lot because some things are funny. And I think to laugh is really helpful. And I think this about business
Yeah.
and I've done really things, I've tried to bring laughter and joy into places that I've worked. I've not always succeeded for sure, but
Mhm.
I've tried because I think it makes everybody's day a little bit easier. And yes, I can be annoying, but I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with
I
that.
think we can all be a little bit annoying. That's fine.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
Louise, if anybody wants to find out more about Absafe, how's the easiest way to get hold of you?
You can just email me on Louise at Absafe, which is absafe.org.uk. That's probably the easiest way. I'm on LinkedIn, Louise Richardson. You'll find me because we're friends on LinkedIn. So you'll find me through Jill if you're already associated with Jill. Yeah, it's probably the best ways to email me. And yeah, and I'm quite happy to answer any more questions. And if you want to get involved or if you feel that we can come into your community and do what we do there, then we're sure. I mean, we travel well, I've always said. We travel well. So if you find that you've got communities down there that you want us to do what we do, then we'll, obviously cover the cost of that, then we'll happily go and do that.
Awesome. And of course, if you want to meet her live on Zoom, you can come to one of our Collaboration Global sessions as well, because Louise, as a member of CoGlo, is always there. She's one of the team that helps me put it together as well, so that I don't crack up under the strain. And we have a fun time, and she's very vocal to make sure that I don't miss anybody out as well. So I'm always grateful for her help and support in that. And if it's in time, 25th of March, 2025, she's one of our guest speakers. So if you've missed that date, you can catch it on our YouTube channel because it will be on there as well. But if it's early enough, just grab a seat at Eventbrite or go to our website, collaborationglobal.org, and you will find how to book a seat on our online session for the 25th of March 2025. Thank you so much, Louise. What you do is so important, and I'm so inspired by how you treat what you do and also how compassionate and how you live your values of be kind and pride, and how you help so many people. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. It's a pleasure.
See you soon.
See ya.